As you know, my name is Abhishek Garg. Okay. So in this, we're starting with the Java frameworks. So Piyush, do you have experience with Java, right? Or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for this, we need IDE. So I will be using Eclipse. So you have that on your laptop or no?
Yeah, I have that on my laptop.
Okay, great. So how we're going to proceed is, so basically, firstly, we need to cover certain modules. So first, we will cover Spring MVC, Hibernate, and Spring Boot. Okay. So we will be learning by creating the projects. Okay. So we'll create multiple projects. Okay. So by the end of the modules, you will be having 2 to 3 projects for each module. Okay. For Spring MVC, from Hibernate, and as well as for the Spring Boot. Okay. Yeah. So before starting the project for the Spring MVC, I want to give you the some introduction to the various concept which we are going to use. Okay. So yeah, for the 1 or 2 lecture, we'll be discussing some theoretical concept that we need to use in the project. Okay. Then we will make project. Okay. Okay. So while I'm explaining, if you have any doubt, please unmute yourself. Okay. Ask at that moment, or you can raise your hand, or you can write in the chat. Whatever way you comfortable with. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Before starting, anything you want to say, you can say. If you want to learn in certain way, or you have a difficulty in something, or maybe any general anything you want to say, you can say.
No, sir, I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, great. Let's start then. So let me share my notepad first. Okay, I hope you can see my notepad. Okay, so basically, let's get first. First module is Spring MVC. Okay, okay. So let me give you first a little bit overview of this and what architecture is involved in this. Okay, so as you know, Spring is our powerful framework that will help us to build Java applications quickly and flexibly. So, do you know what is the full form of MVC? Any guess?
I think model view controller.
Exactly, exactly. So MVC stands for Model, View, and Controller. Right over here. Model, View, and Controller. Okay. So with just a design pattern. Okay. So Spring MVC is a framework that will help us to build the web application using this MVC pattern. Okay. Let's imagine a scenario. Let's say you go to restaurant. So you place an order to the waiter. Okay. So that is your control. Okay. Okay. So you go to the waiter. Let's say you are in restaurant. Okay. You go to the waiter, right? So that waiter will be your controller. Okay. Then waiter goes to the kitchen, right? Okay. To get your food ready. Okay. That is to get the food. That is your mod. Okay. And then waiter comes back and serves that food on your table. Okay. That way you actually see the your food. That is your view. Okay. It's pretty simple, right? So now the whole idea behind MVC is separation of these concerns. Okay. So the if you talk about the model, so the model handles the data and the business logic. Okay. And if you talk about the view, so view is all about what the user sees, like HTML or JSP pages, right? And the controller is a middleware, okay, managing the flow between this between the user and the backend. Okay. So if you ever need to change how the app looks, you update the view, right? So if you want to change how it behaves, okay, you will update the controller or model, right? Simple, clean, and maintainable, right? So let's break down this MVC architecture little more. Okay. So let's say we build a website, okay, and we send a request. Let's say we have, let's say, let's say I build an application which is running on the port 8080. Let's say, okay. So let's say I have this localhost. Hold on, 8080. Let's say I build a app. That's my app. Inside that we have, let's say, paths to show. Okay. So we will be using this concept in the project, so you need to understand it better. Okay. So now let's say you are sending this GET request. Okay. The browser will send the GET request. So who will receive this first? Okay. So who will receive this request? The controller. So the front controller will receive it. Okay. So in this we have a specific term, okay, which is known as a dispatcher servlet. Okay. So we'll discuss that as well. Don't worry. Dispatcher servlet. Okay. Okay. So this is like a receptionist in office, right? It greets every request and knows who to send it to, right? So just like this, we have controller. He will accept that request and he know very well where to send that request, just like the receptionist. Okay. So yeah. So we have the specific term here, which is dispatcher servlet. Okay. Okay. Now dispatcher servlets, it will basically dispatcher servlet will check your spring config.xml file. Okay. So when we create a project, we will be having that file. Let's say spring configuration file config.xml, right? So this dispatcher servlet will take your spring config XML file and will, in that we have mentioned the URLs. Okay. Okay. So to call which, how do we know which when we have this path then request which function to call, right? So that we have defined in this file. Okay. So when we have this URL, which functions to call. Okay. So controller basically accept that request. It will look, it is a function of dispatcher servlet, that is controller. It will look in this file and will check which functions to call. Okay. So it will send the request to the appropriate controller class. Okay. Now controller will do his work, right? So controller method process the request. Okay. Maybe it gets the details. Maybe let's say we're making a project regarding the student details, right? So we fetch the student details or maybe prepare a response and then return something that is called model and the view. Okay. We will return model and view. Okay. So that just means here's your data, like model, and here's GSP page. That is your view. Okay, that you can show. Okay. Now next is a view resolver. So view resolver, yeah. So view resolver will takes that view name. Let's say what you want, which page you want to show. Okay, like student welcome page or student detail page, whatever it is, and we'll call it actual file, right? So let's say okay, so we'll build JSP pages. Okay, so let's, when we normally make any front end website, so we only make HTML pages, right? But here we're working with the JSP pages. Okay, let's say for the home page we make some JSP page, for the about page we have, for the welcome page we have. So all page, let's say we have made, let's say we have written the pages inside certain folder. Normally this is this folder we have. Web in view folder, we have subfolder in which we have ordered all the pages. Let's say we have student welcome page, right? .jsp. Okay. So what is going on? So let's say this is a request we send. Okay. So dispatcher servlet will check in this spring config file which functions to call. Let's say that function returns a model and view. So it will know which JSP page to show and what data should send so that it can render it properly, right? So next, finally, Spring send back this completed JSP to your browser. Okay. Now the student is able to see the welcome page, and yeah, that's it. Okay. So if I need to give you overview, so we have the user. So from the user, it go to the dispatcher servlet. Okay. Then it go to the controller. Okay. Then it go to the model, and then we have the view resolver, and then JSP, right? And then browser. Okay. So normally I have seen that many student has know how to make the project, but they don't know how things are working, right? What is going on the back, right? Behind the scenes, what is going on. And in the interview, they ask, you need to be able to answer that, right? So how things work, okay? So let me just give you a recap. So let's say you ordering a pizza, right? So let's say you as a customer place an order. That is a request. Okay. Then receptionist pick up the call. That is dispatcher servlet, right? And chef prepare the pizza. That is a controller. And the pizza box, which holds the day pizza, is your model, right? And then the delivery guy, which is your view resolver, delivers to your home. That is your what is delivering GSP, right? Okay. So yeah, so you don't want the chef doing the delivery or delivery guy making the pizza, right? So everyone has their own job. That is what this design pattern gives us that is separation of concerns, right? Is it clear? Any doubts so far?
No, sir. It's clear.
Okay, so let's wrap it up. So Spring MVC as a whole is based on the MVC pattern, that is a separation of logic, UI, and data. So dispatcher servlet is the heart of the framework, right? It's root every request. The view resolver help us to render the correct JSP page, right? Okay, let's now go at more depth. Let's discuss now more about the dispatcher servlet. Okay, now that we have understand the Spring MVC architecture at high level, let's zoom it and let's go in a little more deep. Okay, so as I told you, dispatcher servlet is a mastermind that controls everything in the Spring MVC, right? So if someone asks you what is the actual dispatch servlet, right? So you can think of it as a like a traffic police officer, right? Okay. So you know what the job of the traffic police officer. So whenever they see the traffic coming, he will direct, right? So where to go, right? Who to stop, right? Who to direct where, right? So like that only. So when we have the every vehicle, okay, which is in this case is a HTTP request, okay, must pass through it before reaching the final destination, right? Okay, so like it's like a main router in the network, right? So no data packet can move without it deciding the its route, right? Okay, and this class is basically provided by the Spring only. So when you write a project, you will see in the top we have the imports for that. We have the org.springframe.web.servlet. Dispatch servlet, right? And it is a front controller in the MVC pattern, right? So as I told you, what it does. Okay, so so let's say you create a app, right? So whenever the request enters the app, let's say you hint show form, right? So dispatcher servlet intercepts it, right? It is mapped to the slash in the this web.xml, right? So it catches every request, right? So it uses the handler mapping to find which method should be called, right? It will find the right controller, and it will then execute the control logic. So controller prepares the data, maybe calls a service or DAO, right? So it will create a model in the view. Okay, controller returns a view name and the model data, right? And dispatcher servlet asks view resolver, right, to find the right JSP, right? Then it sends HTML to the browser. Okay, so now how do we configure it basically? So now we basically configured in the web.xml file. So yeah, so need to look that as well. So when we create a project, you will get more clarity. When we have those files, we have added that, right? So we'll configure that in that this file. So this is like telling that whenever you start an app, it will create an instance of dispatcher servlet, right? And it will map to all the requests using slash, right? So the moment dispatcher servlet is created, it tries to load a Spring configuration file. By default, it will look in this, right? Spring servlet.xml, right? So whatever name we have given to the servlet in the servlet name, it will look for a config with this pattern, servlet name plus servlet.xml, right? So in that file, we have the component scanning, the view resolver, the beam definition, the controller classes, everything. Entire Spring MVC setup, right? Yeah. So that is, I hope you get a basic idea of DispatcherServlet. Okay. Now let's talk about more about view resolver. Okay. So far we got our DispatcherServlet working, right? Like a traffic cop, right? So our controller are processing logic, right? Okay, and our data is being sent as a model. Okay, so you may be thinking like, how does Spring knows which GSP file to show to the user, right? So that is a task for the view resolver. Okay, so in Spring MVC, the controller doesn't directly say this is HTML. We don't directly say that, right? So instead, the controller just says something like that. It will return this student welcome like that, right? Okay, so, but where are these files stored, right? Located. So but we don't need to care about that where these JSON files are, because that is a task of the view resolver. Okay, so the view resolver job is very simple but super important, right? So it's take the logical view name returned by the controller. So controller will just return the view name, that this view need to be returned. So when the view resolver know that, yeah, this is a view I need to so it has the GSP page map to that view, right? So it will, let's say this controller, let's say when we go to this controller, it say return student form, right? That's the controller just return that. But we know that we have mapping of this view corresponding to this GSP page, right? So that is we have said how again how we configuring it. So we will tell Spring where our JSP lives, and that is again your XML file, right? Spring servlet.xml file. So in that we have all the mappings, right? So let's go ahead. So to keep it, so view resolver just connect the logical view names from the controller to the actual GSP page. So it's configured using the prefix and suffix in the Spring servlet.xml file. So it will keep your JSP secure and hidden from the directories, right? So you're not providing directories. You're just returning the here the view. Then we have the mapping with the JSP page, right? So works this hands in hand with the dispatcher servlet to complete the MVC flow, right? So without it, I will not be know what to show, right? Now, one important thing is okay. So I hope I'm getting this idea. Now let's talk more. So next thing which I need you to learn is about dependency injection. Okay, very important topic. Okay, and students sometimes can get confused when we implement that in the project. So you need to get a little more idea about this, right? Okay, so now this is a most magical feature of the Spring, right? Dependency injection (DI) for short. So this is what makes Spring super clean, powerful, and different from the traditional Java programming, right? Okay, let's take a and let's understand this. Let's me write a let's say uh, you have written a class. Let's say student class. Let's say we have service class here. Student service. So I'm creating a new instance of that class. New student service. Okay. I hope you know the syntax, how we create from any object from a particular class. Let's say we have student service class and we're just creating an instance of that, right? So here your class is creating its own dependency. This means you're tightly coupling your code. Okay. If you change something in the service student service change, your class might break too, right? So let's imagine your app has, let's say you're working on a very complex project and you have 100 plus services. Okay. An object like this, right? It will be totally chaos, right? So this is where this Spring help you avoid, right? So dependency injection simply means you will not create the dependency yourself. Okay, we will let the Spring give them to you. It will inject it. Okay, so it's self-explanatory from the word itself, the name in dependency injection. So we are injecting it. Okay. The Spring will manage the object creation. We are not doing it ourselves. Okay. So we're not performing the object creation. We will just inject the service. Okay. Let's say I want to use the service in other files. So I will not create an instance. I will just inject it. Okay. Okay, let's understand this with better example. Let's say you are baking a cake. Okay, so you could go to the market, you will buy the ingredients, let's say eggs, flour, sugar, right? And you will mix them, right? This is a one option. Or other option is you will call the bakery delivery service, right? And simply say, I want a chocolate cake, right? So they will prepare the cake and deliver it to your kitchen, right? That is a dependency injection. You don't have to do the stuff. You just have to call them. Is I need this. I need this service. They will do its stuff and just give it to you. So that is the injection. You don't need to do anything. You will just inject a service. Spring will handle all the stuff, right? It will do object creation, whatever they needed, and did nothing on your part, right? So you will ask for what you need, and Spring supplies it ready to use, right? So basically, there are two ways for the Spring which they can inject the service. We have the uh, constructor injection and the setter injection. Okay. Okay. Let's look at both. So if we talk about a constructor injection, so basically what happened in this is the Spring passes a dependency through the constructor. Okay. Let's take an example. Let's say I'm building a student controller. Okay. So let's take it. Let's create a public class student controller. Okay. And of course, we need a constructor for this as well for the student controller. Let's get public student controller. And yeah, so basically, I told you we are not getting an object. Okay. So we are injecting it. So one way is using the constructor. So you will get an instance, you will get a variable for the service. Let's say private student service. Okay, but you will not get object, right? Let's give it name the student service. You will passing it by a constructor. So let's pass this as a constructor parameter. Let's say student service, student service. So you will initialize this variable with this value, right? So you can simply say this dot student service is equal to student service, right? Okay. So Spring will create the student service and it will inject it into the constructor of the student controller, right? That is the one way. So next way is using the setter injections. Okay. So this time, what the Spring uses the setter method to inject the dependency. So basically, what we do is, let me just explain it. So in this, Spring first create the student service and then it will call the set student services for you, right? So we'll be using that in the XML file, right? So basically, what is the difference between the both is, so the constructor injection is basically generally preferred for mandatory dependency, right? Because it will guarantee that objects will get everything it needs during the creation. On the other hand, this we use setter injection basically for the optional dependency, correct? Right? So we use it for the optional dependency that you have to remember. And this one for the when we have is for the mandatory dependency. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So it will promote the loose coupling. We're not coupling them together. It will easy to test them as well. We can get a mock dependency, right? It's give a cleaner code, no more new keywords everywhere, right? So we're not getting it any how, right? And it will make the app also more flexible and maintainable, right? Okay. So what is the logic behind the dependency injection, which you need to just remember? Okay. In order to go in depth for now, I'm just giving an overview. So what you have to remember is that you don't need to build the objects. That is the main thing, right? So let Spring do that. Okay. So this is a magical dependency injection, right? The Spring acts like your assistant. It will creates, manages, and handles all the objects you have made, right? Less code, better structure, and easier maintenance. Okay. So far we have just got an overview of the MVC. Okay, what is a model is, what is a view is, what is controller is, how it's work together. Okay, so we get an overview of dispatcher servlet, right? We get an overview of the view resolver, right? We have also got an overview of the dependency injection, right? So before moving ahead, I want you to just get a recap, revise all this concept. Okay, if you have doubt, just let me know. Okay, let me share this in the chat if that possible. Let me check. Okay. Mm, yeah. So you can see I've sent in the chat for the 5 to 10 minutes. Just go over it and let me know if you have any doubt. Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Then you can tell me what you have learned so far. Okay. Is it fine?
Yes, sir, it's fine.
Great. Great. Continue. Once done, let me know.
Hello, sir.
Yes, you have a doubt.
Yeah, sir. Sir, can you explain dependency injection? I mean constructor injection actually.
Yeah, sure, sure. Let
Yeah.
me take another example. We'll explain that. Anything else?
No, sir.
Yeah, rest is clear.
Yeah, the rest is clear.
Great. So I will explain that concept again, constructor and settler injection again. Okay. So for just now, just keep in mind the what is an dependency injection is, right? We basically don't write the objects. Okay, we basically inject it, right? So I will take another example and explain the constructor and that settler. Okay, don't worry.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, done, Piyush.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So can you give me the overview what you have learned so far?
Starting from actually model. So model
Yeah.
is that which holds data that we are going to show, and we've actually does to show data. Uh,
Okay.
right now,
Right. So data we need to show,
uh,
but how we show that in form of views,
mm,
right?
in form of views. Okay, in form of views, and controller is that which get request processes and prepare that. prepare that.
Correct, correct. Yeah.
And the
Next.
dependency, I don't remember actually, but the dependency as we input the databases, I think. Sorry, sir, I don't remember about it.
Okay. So, okay. So imagine, let's say we have a data. Okay. Let's say I have this your information in my file. Okay. That's a Piyush file I have, right? That is my data, right?
Hmm.
Right. And I want to see on my screen. So how I will see as a view, right?
Okay.
So for that I need to send a request. Okay. Who will accept that request? Controller. So controller will accept a request that he want Piyush details. Okay. So controller will call the function who will send the view. Okay, in which we can show that Piyush details, right? This is that. So we have used the term DispatcherServlet. Okay, which is the using the function of controller. Okay. So view resolver, which is actually sending the GSP pages because we using not using HTML, we are using a GSP, right? So that we can add dynamic data as well. Yeah, that is the main thing we have done, right? Because by
Okay.
doing this, we may be using certain classes, we may be using one class inside the another. So instead of creating objects every time, we can inject that service, right? So for that, we have two methods I told you. That one is the uh, constructor, another is the settler. I will explain that again. Don't worry. Okay. Yeah, let's go through that. Okay. Let me continue. Okay. Yeah. So basically, we know Spring actually inject those dependency into your classes, right? So it has two ways. One is the constructor, second is settler. Okay, if you talk about the it's all about we not creating objects. Okay, letting Spring do that first, inject that first, right? But how does Spring know where and how to inject them, right? That is where the constructor
So
and
your
the
voice is breaking actually.
yes. Can you repeat?
So can you repeat recently what you said? Your voice was breaking.
Okay, so now it's clear.
Yeah, it's clear now.
Yeah. So let me just explain again. So I was saying the dependency injection. What is dependency injection? So in basically that we are not creating any objects by yourself. Just like earlier we were using this approach, right? We are not creating an object by ourselves, right? So we just letting the Spring do that for us. We will for that we need to inject that. So there are two ways. One is the constructor, another is a settler, right? But this question is that how Spring know where to inject and how to inject. Okay. So if you talked about constructor injection, so in this method, Spring inject dependency through the constructor of your class, right? So it's like saying, hey Spring, whenever you create this object, make sure you pass all the required ingredients. Like, so yeah. So basically, how this work is, we have XML file. In that, we have to define it. Okay. Let's say you may be having the bean tag for both, right? Uh, for your root service as well. Okay, and for your controller as well. Let's say this is for your, let's say for the service, student service. Okay. Okay, and let's say this is we have in. I'm talking about the XML file here. Okay, in the civil light XML file. Let's say you have the bean tag for your controller, is student controller as well, right? So, so when we create project, it will become more clear, right? Okay. Now inside this, I want to use this class, right? Okay. So just like before closing this tag bean tag, okay, I will tag another tag here. Okay, that is of the constructor argument. Okay, so I will pass the reference of what? This student service, right? Which I want to inject. Okay, yeah. So what is going on? So when you, okay, let's say I want my this class not to work without dependency, right? It will make the dependency mandatory. Spring must pass it to creation time, right? Okay. So let's take an example. Let's say like you are pizza and you are topics you need, right? at the time of order only, right? So you can't say na of the add cheese, right? When it's already in the oven, right? You need to tell before starting making. Okay, you can't say when my pizza is ready, add the cheeses, will add this topping, that topping, right? So when you're making a pizza, you have to tell the toppings beforehand, like this. So when you're using constructor injection, is thing like that. Make sure all the dependency are available beforehand, right? So yeah. So when we have the mandatory, we use for that. On the settler injection, if you see this syntax for this, okay, it's pretty same, but the difference is when we use it in XML file. So in XML, okay, so we have definitely, let me tell you. So we're not using the constructor argument tag here. Basically, we use property here. Okay. So in this, we write a property. Okay. So what it does is, so it will call the method inside that, right? So get student service like that, right? So basically, we use it when we have it. Dependency is optional, right? Or you when you want to allow changing it here. Okay. So let's say, imagine that you're receiving a gift, right, with empty compartment, right? So you can later add the, you can add the chocolates, you can give the cards, you can give the flower, right? So okay, that is set selection, right? So it's going to give you object first, then sets value one by one. Okay. So if I compare both, so in constructor injection, it is a mandatory dependency, which is not going to settle, right? Right. If you talk about the immutability changing, promotion, right? Immutability. I think in both we can do it, right? Yeah. So the thing which you didn't remember, okay, don't
Your voice is breaking actually.
yeah. So okay, let me tell you. So the thing which you need to remember is only that we use constructor injection when the dependency is required. Okay, just remember that only. If we use settler injection when it's optional, that's it. Keep that in your mind. Okay. Let me check my internet connection.
Okay.
Mm, let me just change the Wi-Fi. Is it now fine?
Yes, sir. It's fine now.
Okay, great. Okay. So let's continue. So do you know about the different data structures like list, set, map? You have idea? Yes.
Yes, sir.
You have idea about list, set, and map?
List and
Set or map? Have you heard this term?
I have heard this some, sir, but I have no idea.
No, let me explain it. Okay. So far we have seen how Spring can inject basic dependency into our classes, right? So, but what if our classes needs multiple values, right? We have list of student names, right? We don't have one student name, we have the list of student names, right? Okay. We don't have one email, we have, okay, set of emails, right? Okay. And we may be having the map of, okay, so if we talk about the difference between the list, set, and map. Okay. Let's say I have the names of the students. Okay. Let's say A, B, C, D. Okay. That is a list. Okay. So then what the difference between list and set is, okay, in this, let's say we have email IDs, right? Okay. A@gmail.com. Okay. B@gmail.com. C@gmail.com. Basically, the difference is that only when we create a list, we can have duplicate. We can have the two students can have the same name, right? Okay. But when you create a set, every email should be unique. Okay. In both we have multiple values. Okay. The difference is in list we can have duplicate, but in set we don't. Okay, that is. And in map, we have the key value bits, right? Just like that. Let's say we have the key name and you can mention the name, let's say John. Okay. Let's say their age, which is 24, like that. So we have the key value pair. We have the key and the person. So we have seen about normal injections, but what if we have multiple values, like in the form of list, set, or maybe the map, right? So the good thing is that Spring can inject these, what we call them together is the collections. Okay, the term we can use for this collections. Okay, okay, collections. Then there's of these, right? Okay, so why we need to inject collections? Because when we make real world apps, right, we also need to work with group of objects or events. Okay, like maybe a student might be having these multiple subjects, right? Course might be available in multiple cities. Okay, a teacher might handle multiple tests, so there are a lot of multiple, right? So in such cases, we don't want to create and inject every value manually. Okay, we want let Spring inject the entire collection. Okay, the total of these we have list, we have the ordered collection. Okay, we have set unordered. Ordered means order matters, right? Another order doesn't matter. Only we need unique things, right? And now this is okay. Okay, and this is one special case of the map which is known as the properties. Okay, what is that? It is special case of in which we both key and values string, right? Okay, let's take an example for this. Let's say we want to inject the list. Okay, let's say we have property. Let's student names. Okay, so I told you student names we can have duplicate, so that this will fall under the category of list. Okay, so let's say we have the property student names. Okay, and let's get a list inside it. Okay, so we have different value. That's different names of the student, right? Let's say Rahul. Okay, similarly you can create another, let's say Sneha. Okay, and you may be like Arjun. Okay, so this is a list of the names we have. Okay, then you can close the list and property. Okay, yeah. So Spring will create the list of strings. Okay, and it will inject it into the corresponding fields. Okay, similar like for the set also. So what is set? So in set we will be having the unique elements. We don't have duplicates. Like names, we can have duplicates, right? Let's say when we write cities, okay. So when we write cities names, it's for sure that it will be unique. Right? So in this, we can use set instead of list. This we need to change the tag. Okay, we can write the value like Delhi. Okay, let's say Mumbai. Okay, let's say Bangalore. Okay, so it is useful when order doesn't matter and duplicates shouldn't be allowed, right? And similarly, we can have the map. Okay, so I told you since list order matters. Okay, secondly, duplicates allowed. In this, order doesn't matter. What we care is about what items are in there, unique items, right? And lastly, let's say we have these subject codes, right? In this, we have the key and its corresponding value. Okay, let's say you store the mobile number in your phone, right? So you have the number and whose number is this belongs to, right? So let's say the subject codes. Okay, so these letters regarding this particular subject, right? So in this, instead of if this list, we use the map. And in this, we will have the key value. Let's say we write different entries. Let me remove this. So we have entry. In let's say we have the key, let's say some random code, let's say CS1. This is for the value. your data structures, let's say. Okay. And next we have, let's say, entry city CS10 to, let's say, value algorithms. Okay. So Spring will inject this map, okay, into your class, which will be very handy for the ID to name mapping, right? Similar like the properties props. Basically, it is basically used for the configuration purpose, right? Let's say you want to store the host name, you want to store the port number. For that, basically we use the props. Okay. So instead of list, you will pass the props. Okay. Okay. And you can mention different prop. Like the first prop is for the host. Okay. Key is host. Okay. What is the value of that host? Let's say local host. I'm running a website. Okay. And the second prop I have is the key, sorry, port number, whole port number. That is key is port. Okay, let's say 8080. Okay, slash prop. Okay. So Spring will inject is as a properties object. It will get for the configuration data, right? So let me just give you overview. So we have learned about different collections. Sometimes you don't just need to inject one values, but a collection. So you need to choose properly which thing collection to use. Maybe list. Okay, when we know order matters, when you know the it maybe duplicates, right? So let's set when we know the order doesn't matter. You just care about the uniqueness. It should be unique entries, right? And map when you know it's a key value pair. Okay, each key has its corresponding value. And the props basically the same like the map key value we have, but it is more for the configuration data we use, right? Hosts and portals like that. Yeah. Um, to better understand this, let's take example. Let's say I hope you have used Amazon, right? So you don't add one item at a time manually via the code, right? Okay, you can just create multiple item, right? Or a list or map of what you want, right? So okay, Amazon is not delivering one item at a time. If you order multiple things, it will packs and deliver the whole set, right? Just like that. So it will not in the same in that case. Okay, let's take an example behind the scenes what is going on. Let's say I create a class for student info. Let's take an example. Let's say public class. I'm explaining you this because when we create a project, sometimes I will use list, sometimes I use set, map, right? So I don't want you to get confused. Why we're using it? Why not using it? So let's take an example. Let's say any idea?
Yes, sir.
Let's say I want to create a class. Okay, in that I want to store these students' names. Okay, the student info class, right? So which data
Mhm.
structure we use for the student names? List, set,
Like,
map, or properties? Yes. Any
we will
idea?
use
What? Can you explain again? What you said?
hello
Yeah, what you said?
a list, sir.
Yeah, correct. List. We'd use list. Exactly. So for it is a list of strings, right? Because name. So we'll create a list of string. Okay, perfect. And you can give the name. Let's say student names, right? Okay. Let's say I want to store the list of the cities as well. So the cities what we use. Let's set a map or properties.
Uh, I think we used a set for this list mapping.
Correct.
right?
For cities, because all cities names should be unique. Okay. So
Yeah.
use set. So use private set string. Okay. So cities. Okay. The next we have, let's say subject code. Okay. Each code has a corresponding subject. So which data sets we use here? List set mapper properties. Yes.
Properties.
Um, think
No.
again. We can use properties as well, but yeah, more specific, we can use map. In map, we have the key value pair, right? Yeah. Properties we use basically when we have the configuration data, right? Subject code is not
Okay.
something related to configuration. It's normal key value pair, right? Okay. So we
Okay.
use map for that. So private map. In map, both string and keys, string, key and value, sorry, string, string, and you can give it to the name subject codes, right? And for the configuration data, you can use the properties. So private properties, okay, and then config, okay. And we can have the settlers, okay. Okay. So let's say public void set student names, okay. So we'll using the pass from the constructor list of string, okay, student name, okay. We can write this dot student names equal to student names, okay. Similarly, you can write for others as well, okay. So yeah, so what we've done so far. So earlier we have learned about dependency injection, right? So earlier we've seen how we can inject single thing, right? Single class. Okay, that is also possible. But we've seen also not a single thing. We can inject multiple values together. Maybe list, maybe map, maybe set, maybe properties, right? Like this format. Okay. Just you have to use the proper data structure. Okay. So Spring is not just about injecting single beans. It's smart enough to inject entire collection of beans or values, right? So that is the main thing which you have to understand. Let me share the code, okay, so that you can also get an overview what we have done about the collections. Let me share in the chat. Yeah, I've shared in the chat. Okay. Any doubt in this, Piyush?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's now, okay, so there are a few more topics, then we are done with what are the concepts we need to start projects, okay? Then after that, from the next class, we will only working on projects, okay?
Okay.
Great. So if you don't have the Eclipse setup in you, be ready with that. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Let's continue. Okay. So next topic which you need to get an overview is the AOP. Okay. Any idea what is the full form of AOP? Have you heard this term?
No, sir.
Okay. So basically, AOP is aspect oriented programming. Aspect oriented programming. Yeah, what is it? Okay. So let's say we have written clean classes, used dependency injection, collections and all, right? But let me think what happen if we want to add a new behavior. Like I want to add a logging functionality, okay? I want to add a security feature, okay? Or maybe transaction management, okay? Without touching my existing logic, right? That is where ERP comes, right?
Sir, your voice
Respect,
started breaking again.
where, yeah.
Your
Is
voice
it
is not
my
clear.
network issue or from your side?
Um,
Because your voice is
um,
also
um,
lagging.
okay, it can be, I think. Can I rejoin, sir?
Now it's clear. Now it's clear. Now it's clear. Your voice. Is mine also
Okay,
clear
okay.
now?
Yes, sir. Yes, now it's clear.
Okay. Maybe in between we have. Whenever you face something, just let me know. I will pause at that moment and then I will resume whenever you feel comfortable. Okay. Is it fine now?
Okay, sir, it's fine.
Okay, great. We can proceed then. Yeah. Okay. So let's imagine you have a chef. Okay. Okay. That is your core class. Okay. Who will cooking the main dish? Okay. That is your core class. Okay. Let's say your chef is cooking the main dish. Okay. That is your earlier business logic, you can think. Okay. But now let's say what you want is a cleaner to clean the kitchen before and after. You also, apart from this chef, you need cleaner in your kitchen who can clean the kitchen before chef finishes his task and after finishes his task, right? And also you need nutrition, okay, nutritionist, right? So that he can analyze the dish. You want a food blogger as well, right? So that you can love every step here. But you don't want to modify the chef recipe like every time, right? That is AOP task, right? So if you let you just help in adding the new functionality without affecting the existing one. In simple words, you have to remember it. Okay. So you will add new functionality without affecting the existing one. But how you will write it in the code, right? So basically, AOP is a programming paradigm to isolate the secondary behaviors, like maybe the logging, maybe security checks, performance monitoring, or the error handling, right? So yes, so basically, we have certain components. We have basically 5 key components which you need to learn. Okay, just not need to learn in that. Just need to get an overview. Just keep in mind, right? So we have expect, we have advice, we have point cut. Okay, so we have join. Sorry, we have join point and sorry, we have target object. Okay. Okay, so expect is something the class where you write the extra behavior. Okay, where you write extra behavior, right? It's like logging. Okay. And advice is basically the actual code that runs before, after, or instead of this business logic, right? So actual code that runs before, after, or instead of the business logic. Okay. Then point cut. Point cut it specifies where to apply that advice, right? So it basically where to apply the advice. Okay. And next is the join point. So join point is the exact point in the execution. Okay. I'll explain that in detail. Don't worry. It is the exact point in execution. Okay. And target object is something which is the original bean that's being advised. Okay. That is a business logic. Yeah. Being advised. Okay. Let's understand it one by one. So if we talk about aspect, okay, this is a main character. So this is a class that contains common behavior you want to apply across multiple methods. Okay, let's say when what you did is, let's say it's a class, let's say public class. Let's say you want to add a logging functionality, right? Logging, so logging aspect. Okay, okay. So you will add a annotation here, added aspect. So when you add annotation added aspect, means this is the aspect. Okay, this is where you will write the that extra behavior, right? and inside that basically you have different methods. Okay, that is your advice where lives. So this is where advice lives here, right? Okay, now what are the advice? Basically these are the method inside the aspect that run at specific time. Let's say when you have the functionality logging. Let's say before logging you want to do something, after logging you want to do something, and instead of the main log you want to do something like that, right? Okay, so we have different types of methods that you can run inside this. Okay, so what are the types we have in we have, let's say, at the before, we have before. Okay, so we have at the rate after. Okay, so when you learn these things, so when you make a project, it will not give you a confusion that what is going on, what is this code mean, right? So yeah, let's say you have at the rate around. Okay, I don't want to. I'm not expecting you to get all this in first glance, right? I just want to get just a little bit of idea, right? So when I explain the project, so it will be easy for you to
Sir, can
grasp,
you
right?
repeat what you said? Actually, your voice was
Can you
breaking.
repeat? Oh yeah, sure. I will just repeat this again. Yeah. Let me just write first after returning, and last we have at that after throwing. Okay. So what I'm explaining is we have basically these five components. Okay. The first one is the aspect. So what is aspect? Aspect is just a class which giving the extra functionality. Just say you're making the functionality for the logging, right? So you add annotation at that aspect before this class. So this is your aspect. Okay. And next we have advice right inside these aspect only. So these are the methods which you can run, right? So you will have the method which you can run before that before we can add an annotation before between. This will run before the method. This is a this method will run after the main method. Okay, this runs after and before both, right? So after returning, it will run if the method completely successful. If it this will run if it throws exceptions, right? Okay, so you will write inside this. Okay, so you can add these tags here. Add this here. Let's say let me give you an example. Let's say uh, add the before. Okay, so it's a before execution, before execution of certain servers. Let's say, okay, um, it's not actually. Let's say certain service. Okay, I want to call this function. What is this function called? It's a public void log before. So we log before the function as well and after. Okay, so we add this annotation before after. So these are the advices. So overall, devices, we have these tags before, after, before the method, after the method, around, before and after both. After returning, if method is successful, then we call it. After throwing, if there is an error, then it will be called, right? Okay, so log before, let's say we have sent join point, join point. I will explain join point. Don't worry. Okay. So let's say we printing the log system dot out dot println. Let's say you can add, let's say, logging for method. So you can print it. So you will print join point dot get signature dot get name. Let's say. Okay. Okay, so overall whole aspect is a class which is represent the functionality which is going to add. Then inside that we have multiple methods which run at different times. Okay, before the main method, after the method, around, before and both. After returning, if method returns successfully, then, and if there is an error, we will call after thread. So next is a point cut. See, this will tell Springs where to apply your advice, right? So apart from these functions, before, after, round, after, we have other functions as well. Let's say we have service methods, right? So let's say we have public void service methods. Okay. Okay. So for other methods, we know when to perform, right? After, before, around, this, these. Apart from these, if there are any other methods, we need to specify when to call it, right? It's like a targeting package or method, right? So you need to tell it that you will specify using. If you don't have one of these tags, you can use the @point cut. Okay, and then this perform. Okay, okay, you can specify certain fine. Okay, so basically this will tell us Spring where to apply the advice. Simple, right? If we talk the join point, so this will give you the runtime info about the method being intercepted, right? Like its name, argument. If you more specifically, I will tell you, it will give runtime info about the method being interrupted. Okay, you can see here. So, like, we can get the names and arguments like this. Okay, what are method we doing? So we can get the details about that. What is the name of the method and different arguments like that. Okay, that is this. So far what we covered. So we have expect is whole class. Okay, where the understood aspect, inside that we have different methods. So those methods which know when to call, that is before, after, round, after, returning, after, these are devices. Okay, then we have when, let's say, part of, if we have any other methods, we have to use point cut to specify when to execute that method. Okay, and then we can use joint point, so which will give the details about the methods we are intercepting, right? Yeah. And the last thing, we have the target object. Okay, so this is like your regular business being like your student service or payment service, right? So AOP wraps this bean to inject your extra behavior at runtime, right? So let's say you add logging inspect, but where you want to add the logging inspect, right? Let's say to your student form, right? So it will just inject it to that. That is the target object. Okay. Okay. Is it clear? So now
Yes, yes.
let's understand. Let me just give you overview. So AOP, this in Spring, is like your invisible assistant, right? So it will help you to add a new features without changing your core business logic, right? So with this, you can add a new functionality without affecting others, right? So you can see this. Okay, I'm creating a spec class in that I can have the advices. If I don't know when to apply the advices, I can use point cut. If I need to know the details of the functions, I can use join point. If I need to know the advices, I can use join point. Okay, like that. Yeah, is it clear?
So why do we use target objects?
Target object, let's say you create this functionality, right? Logging expect, but where you want to add it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say I want to add it in
Uh,
my student form, right? So
yeah.
Spring will wrap that student service with this logging aspect. Okay, so being the student form as a target object. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, it is telling you where you want to use it. Okay, so AOP, what will
Okay.
do? It will wrap that class and inject your extra behavior into that. So they will inject this class automatically, logging aspect. So you don't have to do anything. Yeah. Okay. So any doubts so far?
No, sir, it's clear.
Okay. Let me show you that.
Aspect-oriented programming.
What?
No, sir, but nothing.
If you have something to say, you can say. Yeah. I've shared this. Go through that once. Okay. take 4 to 5 minutes. Just go through the stuff. Okay. If you have any doubt, just let me know. Okay.
It's clear, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Great, Piyush. So let's move ahead. Right now, just open it. Okay. So now whatever we learn, so when we write a project, okay, so it will help you a lot, right? Okay. So let me just give you overview. Okay. So far we have learned about the MVC. Okay. So you have the model. Okay. So you have which is your data view, which you by which you're showing the data on the screen, and controller which connects model and the view. It's like a okay. So let's you send this request. It will accept by this controller. Okay. It will decide which view to show. Okay. So in which view you know how to present the data, right? So this request will be accepted by the dispatcher servlet. Okay. Which will then go to the controller. Okay. Controller from the model it gets the data and with the help of view resolver show the JSP pages which is shown to your browser. So we have understand the concept of okay. So first important topic which you have understand is Spring MVC, right? Overview. Okay. That is one
Yes.
thing. Then the next thing is you have learned about there is dependency injection.
Injection.
Okay. I don't expect from you to have a in-depth knowledge, but at least some overview of these terms should be clear, right? Okay. If
Yeah.
someone asks you what is dependency injection, you should be able to answer that, right? Okay. So next we have learned, okay, so in dependency injection, I don't want to create objects. Okay, I just want to inject it. So there are two ways. One is the constructor. What you have to remember is it is mandatory dependency for constructor. If it's optional, you can go for set injection, right? The next thing we have learned about collections, that is list, set, map, properties, not only single values, you can inject multiple values at the same time as well using that. Then we have learned about the AOP, okay, which is expect programming aspect on the programming. Just a minute. Yeah. So yeah, where we were. So yeah, we learn about the EOP, expect earned programming. So let's say whenever you want to add a new features, so you can do it via the EOP. It will not affect your current business logic. So for that, we have learned about the five important components. At least you should be having a high view overview of these aspect. Okay, which is the class you want to add. So inside that you can have the function methods which you know when to execute before, okay, before the method, after the method, right? Around, before and after, both, after returning, okay. So when the method is successful, then you will call it. After throwing, when there is an error in the method, then you need to call it, right? So when other,
Yes.
for other methods, you will by specifically explain when to call it. So that is using the pin point. So join point basically give the runtime information about the methods and target object in which you are adding this extra functionality. That's it. Okay. Now let's move ahead
Okay.
and let's understand. Okay. So any doubt in this?
No, no, sir.
Okay. Let's move with the next topic. Okay. That is hibernate. Okay. Okay. So we will see that, but why? First, let's understand why we need to combine Spring with the Hibernate. Okay. So basically, I don't know whether you have used JDBC or not. Have you used it before?
What, sir?
Database connection. JDBC, database connection. Have you used it?
No.
Okay. So basically, what happened in that is, let's say you have the Java code, right? Okay. And let's see your database. Let's say MySQL. Okay. Let's say you want to integrate both these. So how you will integrate them? With help of JDBC. In JDBC, what you do in Java, you can write SQL queries so that you can manipulate the actual data. Okay. For that, you have to create every query. You have to open a connection with that MySQL. You have to close the connection. You have to write a SQL query. You have to handle the exception. A lot of work you have to do, right? So it's very repetitive. It's very long and it's a lot of right? But there is an alternative that is Hibernate, right? So that's why we're using Hibernate. It's more efficient and easy to understand, right? So it let you with Java objects in the SQL statements, okay? And Spring makes managing Hibernates super smooth with features we have just know. So we know that dependency injections we have, transaction management we have, session factory configurations we have, okay? So we'll go through that, okay? Don't worry. So with these, we have become more cleaner, faster, and efficient. Okay. So I hope you get an overview what is an Hibernate. So if I want to explain in simple words, it's an ORM. Okay. It is an object relational mapping. So object relational mapping. So let's say in MySQL your table in that you have multiple columns. So for corresponding to that, you can create a Java class, right? For that table. And so that you can have different variables representing each column, right? So you have this. Yeah. Okay. And that map is the Java classes to the database table, right? So let's say you have the student class. So Hibernate will help you to save, update, delete it in a database without writing queries. You don't have to create a queries. You can perform normal operation with the class and its methods, right? Okay. So how Springs helps Hibernate? So basically it provides the automatical configuration of the session factory, right? So we have a templates or we can use add transactions. We have the supports for that. Okay. Okay, no worry. We'll just we will go through that once we have the project. Okay. So yeah, that just for what you have to remember is that we can use it so that we can connect a database. Okay. So when we make a project, okay, in which we need to connect to the MySQL, so we will use Hibernate instead of JDBC. Okay. In that we will creating a classes which represent the tables. That's it. Simple, simple words, right? Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Great. So one more thing I just want to explain, and that's all for today. Okay. The last thing I want to explain is the annotations, right? So when we make a project, okay, so we will using a lot of annotations. Okay. I will just give you a brief of certain annotations which we are using a lot, okay, in projects. So I don't want to get confused when I write those annotations, right? So basically, first, what are the Spring annotations? So basically, that is something like you can say the magic, right? Which will add to your code, or it will add to your code. extra functionality, right? So you will have, okay. So we have different annotation. Let me just write that. So we have the add rate
Sir, can
component.
you explain what you said recently written?
Yeah, yeah. So what it do, it will just like you are, let's say, tagging, right? Just like you tag something. This is house, okay. So this is cloth. This is that. So you have different tags, just like that, right? Okay, so when you I add the annotation add the component to the class, so it will add the function feature extra features of the Spring component. Okay, so you're making this class as a component, you're making this class as a controller, so you're making this class as a server, you're giving a tag. So when you give them tag, you will give them extra feature, extra power, right? So we learn certain annotations. Okay. So let's say whenever you create a controller class, you have to add annotation at that controller. Whenever you create a service class, you have to add the annotation of service. Without it, it will not work, right? So we have added component. Okay. So we have added controller. Okay. And then we have added service. We have added a repository. Okay. And we have added auto-wired. We have added request mapping. It is the most used annotation sites. There are a lot others. We have get mapping. Maybe they added post mapping. Okay, added transactions. So in the most of the projects, we will be using these only. Okay, okay, yeah. So why we use added component? Okay, is just for the generic bean. Okay, just another personal system, right? So different components you will create. For each component, you will add annotation this. Okay. So you know what is controller, which will handle the request, right? Okay. So whenever you create a controller class, you have to add that controller annotation, so which will be handling the request. Now you will be having the services in which you will write the business logic. So you will add annotation at the service for those classes, right? And for data access, you will add a repository. Okay. Auto-wired, so it's basically used for the injecting the dependency. Okay. And okay, request mapping. Let's say you have a URL, and let's say for you want to map that URL to a method, you can use the request mapping. Okay. For the get and post specifically, we use this annotation, right? And for the database transaction, let's say you want to withdraw certain amount, you want to add some amount to account, you're writing a SQL query for that, or for, you will use add transactions for that, right? Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, if not something is not clear, okay, don't worry. Okay, we will go in deep when we create a project from next class onward. So in the next class, we will start with the project. Okay, slowly, we will understand the concept in more depth. Okay, and make sure you will understand more better. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So just for now, just let me share that first. Okay, Piyush. Now just go through the recap of what you have learned today. Okay, from the very beginning. Okay, and just till we cover today. Okay, so just today we started with an overview of Spring MVC. Okay, okay. So let's get an recap of what you have learned. After that, if you have any doubt, just let me know. Okay, and that's all for today. In upcoming lecture, we'll start with a new first project. Okay. Okay, so let me give you. So Spring MSC model view controller, you will have a request. That request will be accepted by this controller, that is DispatcherServlet. Okay, it will decide then which method to call. That method will turn us the view, model and view. It will just give us which JSP page to display, right? And then we have dependency injection. We will not creating an object. We'll injecting it either by the constructor when we have mandatory dependency, or by settler injections when we have optional dependency, right? And instead of single values, we can also inject multiple values at a time using the list set map properties. Okay, list we use when we have multiple values, orders matters, and you duplicates allowed, right? Set when we can add multiple values but unique only, right? and key value pair when we have, we use map, and for the configuration we use the props, right? And then we have the AOP. So when you want to add the additional features, we will go for the AOP concept. Okay. So we have these major component aspect, which is a whole class, which you can see. Okay. And inside that we have advices, the methods which will run at specific time. Let's say before, after, around, after returning, after throwing. Okay. If you don't mentioning it, we need to use the point cut to explain when to execute that. And if you want to get details of the method, you can use join point. Okay. And you need to decide what a target object in which you want to add this additional feature, right? So earlier we see what is the crons of the JDBC, what is the limitations of that. So that's why we shifting to Hibernate. In Hibernate, we're using the that is the ORM, object relation mapping. We have creating writing the Java class corresponding to the table in the maybe the database, maybe the MySQL or something, and we're using certain Spring annotations as well. Okay, so you will come in handy. Let's say whenever you create a class for controller, you need to add annotation at the controller. Whenever you create a class for a service, you need to write as at a service, right? When you're depending and injecting a service, you need to use auto-wire, right? So a lot more you will understand when you create a project. Okay, so for now, I will just give you the overview. What is a first project which we're going to make? So we'll make a what we can make is regard. Oh, you tell me what type of project you want to make. Yeah, any suggestion? Any specific theme? Any specific show, cartoon character, something? Any so that it will be interesting for you as well. Any scenario?
Mm, no, sir.
No, no preferences.
What do you? What are you
What?
saying?
I'm saying there's no preference. What type of project you want to make first?
Okay. No, sir. I have no idea.
Okay, no worry, no worry. I will decide then. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So for now, just go through that, revise, and let me know if you have any doubt. Okay.
Yeah. Sir, how many projects we are going to make actually?
Okay. So I will try. Let's say for each topic, we'll at least make 2 to 3 projects. Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if even after that you are not confident enough in that topic, okay. So I will add more projects. It depends on you. Okay. When you become comfortable, I think within one project you will become confident. Okay. So we'll increase the difficulty in second project for that topic, and will increase the difficulty by that, right? So after 3 projects for one topic, I'm saying not a whole, okay, I think you will be master that topic. But even after that, you're not able to understand, we will add more projects. So it basically depends on you in how many projects you can
Okay, sir.
yeah, hello.
Yeah, sir. Your voice is back actually.
Yeah, so I'm saying so. So I will not going through any PPT or theoretical concept much. So I have just given the overview for the first module. Now I will start with the projects directly, right? So that's like how I teach normally, right? So now in that it depends on you how many projects you are can make or want to make. Okay, right? Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I will try to within yeah, for each topic I will at least make 2 to 3 projects. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, just go through the stuff. If you have doubt, just ask me. Okay, that's it.
Okay, sir. I have seen so I have no doubt currently.
No doubt. Okay. So if no doubt, so you can we can provide a feedback in that case. Okay, if you want to change something, if you are facing some difficulty or any suggestion you want to say, you can say.
No, sir. I understood everything actually.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. Okay, then in that case, you can. We have left with 5 to 10 minutes. You can revise the stuff. Okay, and then that's all for today from my side. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir. Hello.
Yes, please ask.
Sir, I understood MVC. Okay, I also understood collections and AOP aspects.
Mhm.
Can we recap last topic of what that we call JDBC?
Okay, no. I have not discussed that. I'm saying, okay, let's say you're creating a project, right? So in
Mm-hmm.
some projects, you need to add a database as well, right?
Yeah, we added
Yeah.
it in
So
Java, but
traditionally, yes.
we
Okay. So
learned
let me
it
tell you. Traditionally,
Hibernate.
what we do is to connect to database, we use one process that is JDBC, right? But in
Mm-hmm.
today's world, we are not using that. Okay. Okay. So what we are going to use is Hibernate. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Hibernate, we will creating a classes, okay, for each table, and we are trying to manipulate the fields through that only. Okay.
Okay, so actually, I was saying that we can we recap components, I mean control services, just a short recap of Hibernate.
Yeah, but I haven't discussed it yet, right? I
Okay.
Yeah. So when we create a project, so we'll start with that. We will first create separate folders, right? So we'll create a folder for the controller. In controller, we'll define all the files regarding the controllers, in which we will be handling the logic. Okay. We'll create a
Mm.
separate GSP files like that. Okay. I think you're talking about this controller service and that you right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Let me just explain you. Let me show. My screen is shared already, right? Right.
Yes, yes, we need to.
Okay, let's say this is your screen. Let's say this is your browser, right?
Mm.
Okay, let's say this is your browser. Okay, and let's say you have the data here. Let's say we have student information. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now in browser, I can see what I want to see. I want to see the details. Okay. So when I want to see the details, I will send a request. Right? Right?
Right.
Now there can be multiple type of requests. So this request can be get request. Okay. If you want to get the data, okay, it may be the post request if you want to add the data. It may be the put request if you want to update the data. It can be a delete request. I hope you are aware of these requests, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, so firstly what we do is we'll send a request. Okay, from the browser we'll send a request. Okay, now who is going to accept that request? It is the who? Yes, who will accept that request? Controller, right? Right.
Right, sir.
So in controller will that will accept that request, because let's say we in controller we specify, let's say whenever we have the get request, which method to call. Okay, so whenever we have this request, which method to call, so we'll specify in this. Let's say whenever we have the get request, call the function get info. Whenever you have the function this, we have this. Control will do that, right? Okay, so now we just define the functions. Okay, but functions actually are implemented in the class service. So in service class, we actually write the methods, okay, which is manipulating data in the database. Okay, let's say in this class, okay, what we're doing is we manipulate data. We maybe get the information. Okay, we want to update a issue. So logic is inside this. Okay, inside this we're just telling we need to call this function. Okay, but actual implementation is in service. Okay, controller main work is to just accept the request and tell where to go. Okay, the business logic is inside the service class. Okay, how to
Okay.
manipulate data, how to get the mod a view, how to understand that is task of service. Business logic inside the service. Okay, so service okay, so controller with contact with the service. Okay, then it process the request and give back the response. So how they give back the response? In the term of the model and the view, it will tell which JSP file to look for. Okay, then it give back to the browser. Okay, so what will you do when you make a project? You will having these separate mod folders. Okay, separate folders for the controllers, separate folders for the services, because you may having the multiple services, right? You may
Yes,
having
sir.
you will having the model class. In model, you specify the structure of the model you have, right? That's it.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Yeah, that is the main stuff. Okay. So things will become
Okay.
more clear when we make actual project. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Yes. Piyush,
Yes,
anything
sir.
else?
No,
Anything
sir.
else?
Everything is clear.
Okay,
No,
great.
sir. Everything is clear. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine then. Great.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye. We'll so meet in the next lecture. Okay. Tomorrow we
Okay.
have a lecture, right? Or no?
Yes, sir. We have actually.
Yeah. So we'll connect tomorrow
Saturday
and
and
we'll
Sunday.
start. Yeah. So you have a setup with the Eclipse, right?
Yeah.
And Java is also installed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which versions of Java you have installed? In
I
your,
think Aditi ma'am told me I installed it. I have to check it. I will check it and do it.
yeah. You can just simply type a command on the terminal Java-F version. It will tell you the version, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But no issue. Okay. We'll see tomorrow. Okay. And then we
Okay.
will work accordingly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah. Bye. Meet tomorrow.